Stardate 14045.266. Welcome to the PTMG podcast, where we talk about nerdy, sportsy, and artsy stuff, hopefully in less than an hour. I'm Bin Lee, aka the part-time movie guy, and with me is my co-host Vanessa Cozini, aka Crazy for Colt. Today we have our guest is Josh Rubinstein.
Hello.
Who's been on the show before. But before we get to that, some quick disclaimers. This podcast is sponsored by the movie Office Ninja, which, again, here's the DVD. Hey, Josh, this is the one you made, actually.
I know that DVD.
Yeah, so here's that Ninja Star thing.
That came out nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. Anyway, yeah, so Josh worked on making the DVD of it. It's currently in process of being approved to be on sale on Amazon.com, and of course you can have it on iTunes as well. Yeah, I haven't made a big announcement of it yet, just because it's one of those things like if it's not ready, that'd be anyway. So yeah. Also, this podcast is uncensored, so my bad word of the day is backtalk, which apparently is a euphemism for flatulence. So, like, that gives a different meaning to, like, don't give me no backtalk.
I can so see a parent doing that. Is like, kid's so mad at farts you. It's like, don't talk back.
I guess so. I mean, it does make sense. Your backside is talking. It just seems...
It honestly reminds me of my brothers.
Quite that way.
Yeah.
Oh no, my brothers would do it on purpose. They would run into a room, jump up in the air, and fart, and then leave.
Yeah, that's always fun. Like, that's actually the one scene I remember from Bring It On, which was a Kirsten Dunst movie about cheerleaders, because her little brother did that to her. The character. Anyway,
okay.
Moving on.
Starting on a high note here.
Yes, or, yeah. Actually, sorry, Vanessa, you have your own...
Yes. I have my British bad word, which is vinegar strokes, which is masturbation. Yeah. I do not know how they came up with that, but used in a sentence, it was terribly embarrassing, really. We walked in, switched on the light, and started singing Happy Birthday, only discovered that Billy was in the middle of vinegar strokes.
That sounds painful.
It's so wonderfully Shakespearean.
I guess so, but yeah, that I don't know why. How did that come to be? I have no bloody clue.
I couldn't tell you. I don't want to know.
Yeah. All right, and the last disclaimer, of course, is that this episode may contain spoilers. For example, in 1943, the baseball player Joe DiMaggio decided to enlist in the Army for World War II.
What? Spoilers?
So,
Go America!
Yeah, so, those people who are planning on betting on the Yankees, I think he played for the Yankees, yeah, you might want to think about that. All right, let's get to my guests. As usual, like I said, Vanessa's been my regular co-host the past few months. Josh is a semi-regular.
As in, this is my second time on it.
I guess I could have sworn it was more than that, but maybe...
No,
Once it's your second time, you're officially a regular.
Okay, fair enough.
Very true. Anyway, so Vanessa, why don't you introduce yourself, and if you have any shit to plug, as fire sirens blast through my window. If you have any shit to plug, now's your chance.
Yep. So I'm Vanessa Cozini, and I have the Crazy for Colt podcast, where we talk about different movies that fall under the very large Colt umbrella. This week we'll be talking about Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and how horrible they were, and how great they were. So yeah, that's what I got going on.
All right. And Josh?
Well, I can plug my show, Torn Book Club, which you can find on Facebook, facebook.com/Torn Book Club, on Twitter @Torn Book Club. We have a YouTube channel with archives of all the episodes. It's a YouTube/channel/Torn Book Club 1 because I screwed up when I created the first channel and couldn't undo my mistake. So, and also I'm working on the Star Trek TNG Blu-rays, and the 7th and final season comes out December 2nd.
All right. Right in time for Christmas or Hanukkah.
Yep. Right in time for the holiday rush.
Sweet. All right, cool. Then let's get to the topics. We're going to blast through some current events, some lightning round current events or something. I should be able to make some sort of pun with current and lightning. But anyway, so I guess not much going on in sports from my end. This high school kid, Drake Davis, has chosen soccer over football to go to college. So that's kind of interesting because apparently he was a pretty high recruit. The thing is, he's only a junior, so technically he could still change his mind. But for those who strongly believe that, you know, football is kind of might be past its peak in popularity, and soccer might be on the way up, this might be a sign. Who knows? In artsy stuff, so Steven Soderbergh did this weird experiment where he took the entire Raiders of the Lost Ark, drained all the colors to make it black and white, and I believe he also replaced the score with... He
replaced the entire soundtrack, dialogue, music, everything with like this sort of weird, trancey 8-bit music.
Oh, okay. So it became a silent film, basically. Now, the article I read from Grantland actually said the score that he replaced it with was the Trent Reznor scores from The Social Network and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Okay, I could hear that. I only got maybe about like 5-10 minutes into it before that was about all I could take.
Okay.
I did try watching it. What's that?
Black and white can give people headaches.
Well, it wasn't the black and white so much as it was the score against the images. It was very jarring, and I actually saw it on Steven Soderbergh's blog, where he like had a whole essay to go along with it. And what it essentially came down to was he was trying to strip Raiders of the Lost Ark down to its barest visual essentials, so that you could really pay attention to the framing and the editing, because he considered it a masterwork of framing and editing, and it is. Like, the way he describes it is, even when there are very quick cuts, you never lose track of where things are in the scene. And he says that's like some high-level visual math shit.
Where can we see this?
God, I can't remember the name of his blog. It's probably linked in the Grantland article that Ben's got.
Actually, I only heard about it through the Grantland article. I didn't see a link actually there, which is really odd.
Yeah.
But you said Soderbergh has his own blog, and so
yeah.
He's got a link there, because it was really funny because his introduction was, here's something really experimental and probably illegal, considering that he does not have the rights to Indiana Jones.
Yeah, no, and he said like straight up in his blog, like, I don't have the rights to do this, but I'm doing it anyway.
I mean, the fact
in the first paragraph, it talks about how he writes about it, and when he said, you know, Soderbergh wrote, it's a link to his blog where you can watch the video. I just
okay.
Okay.
All right, so I clicked on the wrong link. Yeah, I didn't see it at all. I just read this article which kind of highlighted certain parts, which also, like, you know, it reflected on what Josh, you were talking about, how Soderbergh wanted to focus on the framing of some of the scenes and whatnot. Yeah, it was interesting that the Grantland article kind of highlighted I think it talked about like how interesting, like the map room scene where you have that shaft of light going through and hitting the city.
Yeah.
He said that the writer mentioned that that scene looked even more crazy good in black and white.
I would imagine that scene would look very good in black and white. I tried watching it, and I don't think I even got to them. I don't think I even got to the idol scene. Like I barely made it through the opening credits. I was watching it at work, and I was just like, this is too weird.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting idea, and I would not be surprised if more people try this. But yeah, if I had the free time, I'd check it out. But
yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting study in it, and I think it would be like a great exercise for film students.
Yes.
And
I'm imagining film teachers around the world just, this is like, their dream come true.
yeah. And actually, one of the regulars at our book club, he just started film school, so I might actually email him this article.
Okay, cool. All right, moving on to something related to a famous movie. The people of Think Geek, I think, created a flux capacitor USB charger, which plugs, it just plugs into your car, and it's got a little mini flux capacitor thing, and then it's got USB ports on the side, so you could charge your phone.
That's awesome.
Apparently,
it looks so cute.
yeah, it apparently it started off as a gag joke, like an April Fool's joke, I think, last year, and then someone said, "Wait, that's a good idea."
Oh yeah, I've seen this thing before. That is really cool. Like, Think Geek always has the greatest stuff.
But I gotta say this. If this is an April Fool's joke that got turned into a real thing, where is my Link movie? Where is
Seriously,
my Zelda
right? That Zelda movie trailer was amazing.
It was.
Well,
So
while
many people were
at
pissed with
this, given the Grumpy Cat news, why isn't Audrey Plaza's live-action Daria movie not a real thing?
Right? If they can do a web series of that Dora the Explorer thing that they did on College Humor a few years ago,
God.
I'm like,
Oh, God.
please let us do Daria's high school reunion with Aubrey Plaza. I would freaking adore that.
I would pay money.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And as we're transitioning slightly more towards nerdy stuff, the Gotham show premiered yesterday.
Last night, yeah.
According to my math. So for those who don't know, it is basically a prequel to before Bruce Wayne becomes Batman. I apparently don't really watch TV anymore, so I did not watch this, and I wait and see on this stuff. But it sounds like both of you guys have seen it. Vanessa,
Yeah.
why don't you give us your first impressions?
Gah! Was my first impression. I, generally speaking, don't like origin stories in movie or TV format because it usually fucks with the canon. And when you mess with canon too much, you piss off nerds, which is what happened for me.
But is it okay as long as it keeps the spirit of the original, of the characters? I mean, it doesn't.
Some characters, it did keep the spirit. Other characters, it bugged me.
Yeah.
Especially Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and Riddler.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Alfred. Alfred
Yeah, I
really,
was just about to say Alfred. Alfred really stuck in my craw.
thank you. Yeah, because that's not at all his personality or how he is.
Yeah.
With
I mean,
Bruce.
I got what they were going for with him. Like they were trying to create a character who could have potentially been like some sort of government agent in a previous life, which is sort of Alfred's backstory.
But what's beautiful about Alfred is that he is the sweet, kind of like pseudo-mom, pseudo-dad, parental, loving, caring type.
Yeah, and in this, he just came off like really thuggish.
Yes.
Did you say thuggish?
Yeah. Like, I
Interesting.
mean, one of the first scenes we see with him and Bruce is up on the roof of Wayne Manor, trying to conquer his fears, and Alfred comes out and just goes, "Oi, get down off the roof!" Swear to God, that's what he's like.
Yeah, and at no point does he call him Master Bruce, which I always it always sounded like an endearment to me when he called him Master Bruce.
Yeah.
It always sounded
there definitely was like, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, it always sounded like he was, the parental love that he needed. And I didn't get that at all from this version.
Yeah, there was definitely a lack of affection between both Bruce and Alfred. Like, I mean, you had Alfred come to pick him up at the police station after the murder, and Bruce like rushes to hug him, but that's about it. Like, other than that, they both seem like very tense around each other.
Very much so.
So, Josh, what was your? Do you also agree with Vanessa's overall impressions about?
I think I'm a little bit more forgiving of some of the contextual changes that they made, just because I tried to view it on its own merits as like its own independent thing. There were parts that I felt worked very well, and there were other parts that I felt really didn't work at all. I thought Edward Nygma, who was only in there for a scene, basically just to establish him as a character, was extraordinarily pointless. And I'm like, he could have come in much later on in the series. We didn't need to have him in the pilot. I was not too thrilled with Selena Kyle, just because, first of all, she's a witness to the Wayne murder. She sees the whole thing happen, which I don't really like, and then after that, she's basically stalking Bruce, and that's all we see of her is just like stalking Bruce.
So for those who are not seeing for those who are just listening to the audio, Vanessa gave a giant fist pump when Josh talked about Selena Kyle being a witness to the murder.
And that goes back to what I was saying about how I don't generally like origin stories in movie and TV format. You can't go back and say a character who was never there was there for that scene, that death, that shaped who Bruce Wayne became, because if she was there, that would have obviously led to a bunch of different stories.
I mean, it totally changes their relationship later on down the line. The other thing that I felt like really sort of changed Bruce's characterization was that the whole premise of the pilot episode is the Wayne murder. It opens with the Wayne murder, and it's about the investigation into the murder and how they start pulling back the layers and realizing that it's actually part of a conspiracy between, or a collusion between the mob and the police. And while, like, I know that there are many different angles to the origin story that have been used in the comics throughout the years, some of them, like, it was just a random act of violence, others there was something much deeper behind it. I sort of felt like this changed things because Jim Gordon is investigating it, and of course he's like the White Knight guy who wants to be on the up and up. So when he discovers that there might actually be a conspiracy here, he tells Bruce about it as a little kid. Which I'm like, that's drastically going to change how Bruce grows up. Mm-hmm. And that's really going to color like how Batman comes to be.
Okay.
Josh, I want to ask you, did you feel like they were trying to make Jim Gordon a bit like Batman with the whole no-killing thing?
Maybe a little bit. Like, I sort of feel like they're trying to make Jim Gordon like the role model for Bruce that will help sort of inform the Batman persona later on. But like my impression from it more than anything was that this is really going to be more of like sort of a dark buddy cop show between Gordon and Bullock. And I think the two of them have really good chemistry, so I think that might be okay. Because I did like Bullock's character, and the actor's name totally escapes my
I
mind
think
right
it's
now.
Donald Logue, right?
Donald Logue, right? Yeah, and
Okay.
he's great in everything I've seen him in, and
Okay.
he does a really good job in this. And I also thought that what they did with Penguin was interesting. I didn't really have too much of a problem with that. I mean, he's a low-level enforcer in the mob, but he's very ambitious, and he sort of oversteps his bounds and pays the price for it.
And that's very true to his character. That was like the reason I didn't single him out when I said they messed with a lot of characters, because I
Yeah.
felt like that was the only character that they stuck true to.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So before moving on, two things, I guess. So the one thing that I read and heard from the Grantland people who do pop culture is, you know, they're also tired of just constantly using origin stories. B, they thought that yeah, they felt like it was kind of cynical to have to throw in that many Easter eggs into a first episode, which sounds like, you know, Josh, what you talked about earlier on.
Yeah. I agree. Like, Edward Nygma didn't need to be there. The whole
Also,
shoehorning in of Poison
Jackson.
Ivy as the daughter of the guy who is framed for the Wayne murder was completely unnecessary.
Okay.
That and calling her Ivy just pissed me off on a
Yeah.
completely weird level.
Yeah, because basically she's just like a creepy kid who is, for no reason that we can see, is obsessed with plants.
Yeah, I mean, she's a botanist in the comics, and, you know, in every different version of her origin story, she's always been a timid botanist, but she's never been creepy until she was driven insane from one thing or another, depending on which version of her origin story you're going with.
Yeah.
This version was completely different and unnecessary.
And, like, the last character that I think we should talk about, of course, is Fish Mooney. Who?
So the Jada Pinkett Smith character, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Who plays a pretty prominent role in this, and is probably going to play a prominent role throughout the series. And part of me was like, okay, well, we see the Penguin, we see Poison Ivy, we see Catwoman, we see Riddler. Who is she supposed to be? And
so she's not of canon that we know of?
the best I can think of is, like, maybe she is some sort of, like, proto-Joker or something like that, because, like, she's sadistic and sort of revels in her sadism. Like, there's a scene where she's auditioning a stand-up comic for the club that she runs, and the stand-up is, like, telling just, like, really, really dark humor, like, really, really bad dark jokes, and she is cracking up over them. And I'm like, this is weird. Where are we going with this? I'm curious to see where they go, but I sort of feel like she might fizzle out pretty quickly.
Okay. The third thing that I got from Grantland was they really liked the Bullock Gordon stuff, and they kind of wished if it went, you know, be a little bit more creative. They went more creative and focused more on their, you know, have it more to be like a weird buddy cop thing.
And
to make it interesting, because we've seen this story before. We know where it's got to go from point A to B to C, and they feel like that kind of kills the creativity of the potential here.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's kind of what I'm hoping, is that they will sort of shift the focus away from the origins of the villains and sort of make it more buddy cop between Gordon and Bullock, because that I would actually be more interested in seeing.
Well, they did say that Fish Mooney was created for the show because they had to have a element of organized crime that predated, you know, what are now children but later become adults. So they had to give, you know, an organized crime element that wasn't present ever in the comics because they're going pre-comics.
Okay.
But like,
yet,
like
Carmine Falcone is still,
like, older.
I got none of that.
Oh, I was just pointing out. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Oh, I was just saying, but yet Carmine Falcone is still, like, the capo.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I was saying the same thing too. So, bright minds think alike. All right, so my last question for you, for both of you, about Gotham before moving on is: do you feel optimistic? Like, would you continue to watch?
No.
Okay.
But I mean like that.
I think it's got some potential, and I'd like to see where it goes. So I'll give it a few more episodes before like I really sort of uh, lay the hammer down on it, yay or nay.
See,
All right.
that was me with the whole Christian Bale Nolan series. I didn't like that either.
Okay,
So I really highly doubt I'm going to like this any better.
Interesting.
that's fair.
Cool. Moving on to even more dorkier stuff or nerdier stuff. They're all. Vanessa, you really you wanted to talk about Denise Dorman, who wrote an article
Yes.
about is cosplay killing Comic-Con.
Yeah, so Denise Dorman asks, is cosplay killing Comic-Con? Denise Dorman is the wife of, a comic book, sci-fi, fantasy illustrator Dave Dorman. I'm not personally overly familiar with his work, but I know people who are. And she, like many other people, see that they're losing more than they're gaining by going to conventions, and that is a real and large issue in, the comic book world, is these artists and creators and collaborators, pay way too much money to go to these conventions to promote themselves, and they aren't breaking even half the time. But instead of attacking what I personally think the real issue is, she's more or less blaming the cosplayers, which I find interesting because,
What's her?
I feel like that's missing the forest for the trees.
yes, and that's basically what I got from the article. I mean, I read it a couple times, and I read, the different comments on it as well. She talks about how she was at Wizard World and Chicago, and she was at San Diego Comic-Con, and, they didn't make any money, and all they see is a selfie-obsessed Instagram cosplay being the focus of conventions, because while they're sitting there at their table and nobody is looking at them or talking to them, people are just, trying their hardest to get pictures of other people in these different elaborate costumes. And yeah, some people, that's a whole reason for going to conventions is cosplay.
Mhm.
That is a true statement. They pay to go.
But I sort
Can't
of feel like cosplay is a thing that has been there since the beginning.
Exactly.
So
That's my two things why I think, Comic-Con is such a crazy thing is that it's overly corporate and it's mainstream.
mhm.
That's my personal opinions on the matter, is why, they're losing so much. It has nothing to do with cosplay, because I know people who cosplay. We know lots of people who cosplay, and
Yeah.
they come back from conventions with tons of, art and comics. I always come home with bundles of books. That's my thing. I love the books.
Mhm.
But, everybody has a different reason for going, and they have different things they like to buy. And to say that your fans are the reason you're losing money is a very detrimental thing to do to your business.
Yeah. Like I
Don't
Yeah.
know what possessed her to go there,
Oop.
but yeah, yeah, her article, she constantly reminds the reader that she has asked other people who are at the exact same level of fame as her husband. I don't know why she needs to constantly remind people that that's who she's asking and that's who is saying this with her. But yeah, she constantly is like, I see these famous people from, who did she cite? She cited somebody famous from Japan, and that they were just sitting at their booth and nobody was looking at them, and it cost them $7,000 to be there just for their fans, and their fans don't care. And it's like, that's really an unfair thing to say, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, I sort of feel like Comic-Con there are lots of things wrong with Comic-Con,
Oh yeah.
and I mean, cosplay is something that is an element that is always going to be there. It has always been there. Um, it's definitely taken more of a spotlight recently, but I don't consider that to be a bad thing because what you're doing is you're focusing on creativity. Um, but I sort of feel like this is sort of more of a knee-jerk reaction to what she's seeing right in front of her, as opposed to sort of taking a step back and analyzing the situation more. Because, like, the big things that I feel are taking away from artists or independent artists at Comic-Con are the big studios who take out these huge booth spaces that are attracting hundreds of thousands of people, or hundreds and thousands of people, I should say, to the convention, and they're sort of muscling out the indie artists. Like, the thing that I've always noticed, like, throughout the years, is that Artist Alley tends to get pushed more to the side and is getting smaller and smaller every year. So I don't think laying it solely on the shoulders of cosplayers is very fair. I sort of feel like there's a lot more to it than just that, and to oversimplify it this way is very detrimental to the argument. And I mean, Comic-Con and Wizard World are both extraordinarily commercial conventions. Like, I would say that they're not even very fan-oriented anymore.
And what I find to be actually quite ironic is the fact that she cited those two, while Dragon Con and Emerald Con and other conventions have an even larger cosplay population, but the artists make more going there.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's something to be said about picking and choosing where you go, picking and choosing your battles, and picking and choosing who to blame. If you're going to blame somebody, tread carefully, because I think the first, what did I call it? The first rule of entertainment: don't insult your fans, don't blame your fans. It's like the first rule.
Yeah.
Right.
But not good business. It really isn't. But yeah, her article sparked lots of controversy, is why I wanted to bring it up. And yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get to our main topic. Our guest here, Josh, has has his own podcast called the Torn Book Club. Also he recently had a big event last weekend.
Yeah.
I was not invited to, but I wouldn't have made it anyway because I watch too much sports. Josh, why don't you tell us about the Torn Book Club, what it is?
Okay. Well, first of all, you are always invited to the Baggins Picnic. Like, it's an open invite to everybody. So Torn Book Club, first of all, I should say that Torn actually stands for theonering.net, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, fan site for Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. It was established back in 1999, I want to say.
Okay, so it was before the movies came out.
Yeah, it was created basically as sort of like the Tolkien answer to the Force.net once the Lord of the Rings movies were first announced. And they got popular through spy reports because one of the founders was from New Zealand, and she and some other people were able to get some nice exclusive pictures from the set. And so that sort of sparked his popularity, and over the years, I came on board in 2002 as an event organizer, and we've sort of been doing that over the years. Like, we've been doing the Baggins Picnic every year since 2002. Like, even when there wasn't a movie coming out, we were still having the picnic every year. But we also had Oscar parties for the movies that were really big to-dos. Cost lots and lots of money. But But Torn Book Club, which I created, came about because there's a very weird like sort of metamorphose kind of story that goes along with how it was created. It began with an email chain among the staff where we started joking about rewriting parts of The Lord of the Rings in the style of Stephenie Meyer.
Oh, God.
So this is clearly during the peak years of Twilight series.
Yeah, like this was and really like it just like somebody wanted to do some articles about that or some joke articles about it, and we sort of shot it down as like it's too trolly. We shouldn't do something like this. This is something that's like better suited for like we're trying to keep like a nice positive image, and we sort of felt like bashing Stephenie Meyer on the site is just not something we should do, no matter how much we really want to.
But it's totally okay.
Yeah, but
tell that to the Stephenie Meyer fans. Come on.
But we're a Tolkien site, so it sort of felt like trolling for trolling's sake. And
yeah, but you can't really call her an author.
No, she's not an author. But what that did do was it sparked another conversation between a few of us to start up a user-generated contest of rewriting Tolkien in the voice of various other authors, like more respectable authors, and
like
and
Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes, like Edgar Allan Poe.
That'd be cool. I'd read that.
We actually we did that for one of them. We did probably about 6 months of it. It was called Rewrite Tolkien, and what we would do is we pick a theme for the month, and we pick an author for the month, and we did Dr. Seuss, Charles Dickens, Edgar Allan Poe, Jane Austen, and had people submit them, and the best one that we chose would be read on the air on another broadcast that we do on Tuesdays called Torn Tuesdays by the host there, Cliff, who is a voice actor. He's a professional voice actor, and so like that would be the grand prize, is to have your story read on that show. And we did that for a while, and sort of the scheduling kept getting so mixed up, and like they would forget like towards the end of the month, like, hey, Josh is going to come on with the winner for Rewrite Tolkien, and Cliff is going to read it, and they would have other things scheduled, and it's like we couldn't really get it to mesh as well. So we sort of decided, okay, how about Josh? How about you go and create a whole nother show where we can focus on literature and we can focus on Rewrite Tolkien? And I thought, okay, I'll do that. So I took the reins on that and sort of figured everything out as I was going along. Because I think I got the email like saying, hey, would maybe you'd like to do another podcast that focuses on literature? And I said yes, and 2 weeks later the show was going. So I had 2 weeks to like sort of figure this whole thing out. So like at that point I didn't even have a webcam. so like I got a webcam, got the software, taught myself the software, started tried to promote it, getting a Facebook page up and everything, and as the show progressed, we started discussing various other books, and I wanted to sort of like take it beyond Tolkien. Like, I mean, not that Tolkien isn't a subject that you can discuss at length. You definitely can, but also it doesn't make for like a really good weekly show if you're just talking about Tolkien the whole time. So I wanted to sort of talk about all the other wonderful books out there and all the other things that we read, because like our fans, we read much more than just Tolkien. We read Dickens, we read Stephen King, we read all sorts of different stuff. And so I wanted to try to focus on that more, and so it's been sort of developing and progressing and morphing throughout that whole time. And I try to get guests on, doesn't always work out, but we do have an active chat, and it's got a good number of like regular followers and regular fans, like this logo here down in the corner there. that was actually designed by one of the fans of the show, who just threw it together, just like she drew it and posted it to the Facebook page, and it was so much better than like the dinky little thing that I had made in Photoshop. Like, I immediately contacted her and was like, "Can I make this the official logo for the show? Because this is amazing." And
she's incredibly talented.
She is. She's a fantastic artist. She lives in Finland. Her name is Ava, and so now I'm working with her on a couple other projects. And she's working on some other things too. She was just at a Dragon Con, and now she's working on a graphic novel. And she's incredibly talented, and I hope that her art takes her very far, because like she blew my mind like right away.
It needs to be shared.
Yeah.
So this is kind of I know some people don't want to know how like the sausage is made, but so we for this podcast we're just using Google Hangouts, and everybody just has a webcam, and boom, you're using a completely different program that incorporates Ustream and chat rooms, right?
Yeah. Well, the chat room goes through Ustream.
Okay.
But I use a software called XSplit Recorder. I think that's what it's called. Let me check. Let me bring it up here real quick. XSplit Broadcaster.
Okay. And have you been using that like since day one?
No, I actually started using just the regular Ustream producer software, which comes when you set up an account. Gesundheit. Thank you. But then I wanted to try to find some other stuff, because we started broadcasting to another streaming site, which has since gone the way of the dodo. And so I looked into some software that allows you to broadcast to multiple streaming sites at once. And so that's where I found XSplit and started using that. And like I'm able to integrate like full on-screen graphics and everything. I can do split screens. I can take the chat window that is usually outside of the screen, and I can bring it into the screen itself, so that when people watch the archive of the episode, they can actually see the chat going and not see us sort of like responding to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting to watch your episodes, because every once in a while you've got to like take a break, take a little pause to read and catch up on what's going on in the chat rooms.
Yeah. And sort of what I realized was like it was creating these very pregnant, awkward pauses, like in the video. I mean, like if you listen to it in the audio, like all you just hear is like me talking and then suddenly stopping for a second. But like that's why I brought the chat window into the video itself, so that you can still read along with it and see what people are saying, so you can see what I'm responding to. And I always try to like call out what I'm responding to before I say anything, like so-and-so says this, that, or the other thing, and then I respond to it. Mm-hmm. But it's very hard to do that when it's just yourself, which is why I try to get guests on so we have a little bit of a back and forth going. So it's always better when I have a guest on, and I do have a semi-regular co-host, Eve, who I do need to bring back on. But she, we're going into October now, and October is going to be horror month, of course. And she said she probably won't have much to contribute to that conversation.
Well, if you need someone talking about werewolves, there might be somebody involved in this conversation.
That could be.
I happen to be an avid reader of various werewolf or lore-stricken authors.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like, because what I'm trying to do is like with the horror theme, I'm trying to create like a specific subject for each episode. Like, for September, we were doing back to school, and so for the first episode, we were discussing all of the books that we would read in school as kids, or like like all the school reading books that sort of stuck with us over the years, the ones that we really liked or the ones that we really hated, the ones that stuck with us in a negative way, like, and I got some huge response to that. Like, we were discussing To Kill a Mockingbird, and a lot of people were like, and I freaking hate The Great Gatsby. But it was interesting seeing how there were books that I had read in school, and then there were other people in the chat who were definitely in high school at a time other than me, and they were reading completely different stuff. And then for the next episode, we were discussing banned books, because it also sort of coincided with Banned Book Week, which is actually this week. And so I was looking up the list of the most banned and challenged books over the last 10 years, and what I found on that list was actually like kind of shocking, because a lot of them were books that I read in school as a kid that nobody really cared about too much, or really made much of a fuss about. Like The Chocolate War was on there, To Kill a Mockingbird was on there, Harry Potter and Twilight, of course, and 50 Shades of Grey, of course, yeah. which I'm like, okay, what sort of psychotic teacher would want to do 50 Shades of Grey?
I know some people that totally would. I wanted to ask a question.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first banned book you read that you knew was banned when you read it?
Honestly, I don't. It was usually like after the fact I would realize it was banned. I mean, in high school, I read a lot of Stephen King on my own, and I know that many of my teachers sort of frowned on that and sort of looked at me askance because of that, because I was always coming into school with a new Stephen King book, and they were like, okay, should we worry about you?
I actually had almost the same experience, because I read some Stephen King, and it was in a very particular section of the library that I swear to God was like the dustiest section that nobody went to, and the librarian actually told the principal that I was there too often.
Wow.
Yeah. But I wanted to say probably the coolest teacher I ever had was on the FBI watch list for letting us read Moon Children, which was a banned play in college for the college level banned books.
Wow.
And it's a really fantastic read if you ever wanted to read it. It's called Moon Children. I can't remember who it's by, but it's a play. And it's about how each generation manufactures the next.
Interesting.
Fascinating read.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it was weird because I thought, like, I never got to read Catcher in the Rye. It was never required. Instead, it was Moby Dick. And then I also never read Lord of the Flies. It was really weird because during that specific episode, everyone was talking about those, and all the other schools around my school did it, and we never talked about those for some reason. I don't know. Either I was in a weird district or something. But it's just one of those weird quirks where different districts have different curriculums, obviously, and
yeah, there were definitely like there were books that I knew people were reading a lot in high school, or that were being assigned a lot in high school, and I just was never in the right class to get them. But I did have the one awesome English teacher in high school who basically spent the entire semester assigning nothing but science fiction, and it was amazing.
That's you.
Yeah. Like, that's how I got to read Fahrenheit 451, The White Mountains, 1984, Brave New World, all the really good stuff.
You ever get that one teacher that never gets enough, students that are interested in reading, and like the one time you are like, can you tell me more authors, and they just like die of shock?
Yeah.
I'll never forget when I got into what was it? It's like right over there. For some reason, I'm losing the name, but it's Walden Emerson.
Oh, yeah, Emerson, yeah.
When I got into Emerson, my teacher about had a heart attack because I would think I was the first student to ever actually be interested.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, Emerson is not something that you usually see students reading.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever read Emerson.
Oh, you gotta read it. You gotta read Walden. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Or
one
Higher
is
Law.
great.
Yeah, I'm a little too busy with watching sports ball on Sundays. Speaking of Sundays, actually this Sunday you did not have a regular episode, Josh.
No, we did a live stream from Griffith Park for our Baggins birthday picnic, which we do every year and have done since 2002. And I should say that the Baggins birthday celebration is something that has been a tradition among Tolkien fans going all the way back to the 60s.
Okay.
And we sort of co-opted it, or we sort of did our own, starting in 2002 when our site like started really getting popular and our events started really getting noticed. And so we're like, okay, let's start doing this annual event that people have been doing for years. And so we found a spot in Griffith Park, and we've changed it over the years. The first year we did it in the old zoo, like up on the hill in the old zoo, which was, we only did it that one year because we quickly realized that logistically it was really hard to get lots of people up to that area because you have to walk up this hill. There are people who are disabled. There are people dragging tons of food and chairs and blankets and stuff up this big hill up to the old zoo. I mean, it's a gorgeous area, but it's you sort of have to like prepare for it.
Right.
So,
It's also a pain if you're wearing elvish clothing. That's very
Exactly. So after that, we moved it to an area right by the merry-go-round, the famous Griffith Park merry-go-round, and that was good for a couple of years. And then we started realizing that we always try to hold it on the weekend that is closest to September 22nd, which is Bilbo Baggins' actual birthday. Like, that's the actual date. And it's actually the birthday of Bilbo and Frodo. And what we realized was that weekend also usually coincided with International Peace Day. And there was an organization that would come in and just co-op that entire area of the park to have this humongous peace festival. And let me tell you, they're not that peaceful when they want their areas. Like, they muscle us out of there pretty fast.
Irony.
Yeah.
So then we moved it to the old zoo again, but this time down in the picnic area at the bottom of the hill, so that people could easily park and find it and get there. And we did that for a number of years, and then started realizing that that area is also where they do the LA Haunted Hayride every year, and that weekend is also the weekend when they're really starting to prep for it. The picnic area is usually still pretty open, but you can sort of sense that there are people who are like, could you please move? We're trying to set up the haunted hayride here.
You guys need more dwarves or something to like show some might.
Yeah, and since Griffith Park is a public park, basically the way it works is you get there early and stake out your spot, and that's where your picnic is. And so now, starting last year, we've moved it to a whole other area of the park called Mineral Wells, which is a little bit deeper into the park, but it's very nice, and it's very sunny and very, very pleasant, sort of away from like the hustle and bustle of like the big activities of the park. So it's a little bit calmer, and so that's where we were this year. And on Sunday, I did a live stream from the picnic, which was
how did you pull that off? Like, what were you shooting with?
I was shooting with my phone.
No.
Yep.
Wow.
I have a Ustream app
for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I have a Ustream app in my phone, and I just set it. I could see the chat as I was going. The only thing I couldn't do was flip the camera. Like, I couldn't flip the screen, so like I couldn't go from this camera to this camera. So I always had to face it away from me.
What is that, an S5?
Yeah, it's an S5. I just got it last week, actually.
Twinsies.
Nice. But yeah, it worked out really well.
Huh. Yeah,
But,
I was curious about that.
Yeah, And of course, like after the live stream ended, that's when all the activities for the picnic really started happening. We had there's a funny story here. We had our big Oscar party for the first Hobbit movie 2 years ago, and I mean we threw more money at this than we had any right to or had in our coffers, but it was a really great event. My only criticism was we should not have had as many open bars.
Oh.
Because yeah, open bar on Oscar night equals
Drunk hobbits?
It equals a very interesting 2 a.m.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here?
Yeah. So we did a lot of decorations, and one of them was this big homemade Smaug tail, this big dragon tail.
I was about to ask about that.
And what we had done was we had a whole bunch of volunteers there, and they spent all day stuffing this tail with whatever they could find, like bubble wrap. There were points where they were like tearing up Girl Scout cookie boxes and throwing it in there, like anything to sort of fill this thing out. And about halfway through the day, everybody who was stuffing it just got really punchy and really goofy, and started writing diary entries and notes from a dwarf who had been eaten by Smaug.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
And put it in the tail. and so after that, after the party, one of our staffers, Christy, she had been hanging on to this thing, this humongous plush tail has been sitting in her living room.
Like 15 feet long or something, right?
Yeah. She had it coiled up in her living room, taking up all this space on her couch for 2 years. and so we were like, okay, how do you feel about us bringing the tail to the picnic, and we'll just unstuff the dang thing, bring a whole bunch of garbage bags, and we'll make a game out of it and tell everybody, like, dig in there and see if you can find all the notes from the dwarf. and so we did, and it was hilarious. We had like about 15 people just like rummaging through all this garbage, and I shot a bunch of video of it. Unfortunately, like, it also filled up my phone, so I wasn't able to get much of anything else. But it was hilarious because everybody was picking up like little notes and reading them out loud as they found them, and it was like day 7. I've met a friend. Day 10. My friend is looking tasty.
Oh my goodness.
It was really hilarious stuff, and I hope that we saved those notes. And I got a whole bunch of video of people reading these notes out loud. Like, they're absolutely hilarious.
Please post that.
I do need to like edit this down and post it because it's absolutely hilarious. But yeah, we unstuffed that whole thing. We filled up probably about 10 garbage bags with this. And then Christy took the empty sock that was the tail at the end and took it home because it was actually made of some very nice material.
So it's just going back to her living room, and then every year Smaug's tail will have an appearance?
No, it takes too long to stuff that thing. This was a one-time only deal, and it was really just to sort of help her like unclutter her living room.
Nice.
So now that thing can like be shoved in a closet. But we also have we had a cake decorating contest, and so people brought in all these like wonderfully themed cakes that I shot a little bit of during the live stream. We had some Smaug cupcakes, and so on some cupcakes you had the eye of Smaug, and on others you had different colored jewels.
Ooh.
It was really cool. And the winner was this cake that a couple of girls made of. It was red frosting, and on it was Gollum sinking into the lava.
Oh, nice.
It was really cool. That was our winner. And we also do trivia contests. We do impression contests where people sort of recite their favorite parts of the movies or put like a goofy spin on it. And we have 2 guys, Matt and Chris, who they're sort of the ringleaders for that. and so like they always get the ball rolling with like some silly performance that they do, and they come up with a different one every year. And this year they were singing the Misty Mountains song, gospel style.
Oh.
It was awesome. And
I'd like to hear that.
And then, unfortunately, my camera was full, so I wasn't able to record it myself. I'm sure somebody recorded it somewhere.
Right.
Type that into YouTube, see what happens.
Yeah. And my tradition is I always recite Bilbo's birthday speech.
Ah, okay.
And I always... It's hard to memorize that thing because he goes through this huge litany of all the different Hobbit family names, and I can never remember all of them.
So this is the speech that he does in Fellowship?
Yeah.
Okay, so then someone's got to yell back proud feet, right?
Oh, the whole crowd yells back proud feet.
Okay.
But I do the unabridged version, like the full version from the book, which is much longer.
Okay.
But I always try to make it like lively and fun, and when it comes time to actually put on the ring and disappear, I always do like some sort of weird sight gag.
Nice.
And Eve, she did record that, so I'm hoping that she'll send me the video of that. And this year we do get some celebrities and some actors who come by. And this year Sala Baker came by, who played Sauron in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was cool. And so yeah, there's always like lots of fun stuff to do. There's lots of great people there. We probably had roughly about 100 people at the picnic this year.
Do you feel like membership goes up when there's movies?
Oh, always. Always, yeah. Like there's always like a much stronger presence of fans. Excuse me, when the movies are coming out. But even in the intervening years, it was never like a tiny crowd. Like, I mean, I don't think we've had fewer than like maybe 30 people at any given year. And one of my friends was like saying, "Oh, this will probably be the last year for the Baggins Picnic," and I just chimed in and said, "We'll keep doing this even if there's only 5 people showing up."
So I have to ask,
Mm-hmm.
Do you have Hobbit feet?
I do not, no.
I'm in shock.
Yeah, no, I do it for real. I do Hobbit Commando. I go real barefoot.
All right. I have no idea where this conversation is going. I'm not sure. I like this direction. We actually probably need to wrap up pretty soon.
Okay.
Vanessa, did you have any other questions about the picnic or his podcast or anything?
No. But will we be putting a link in the description?
Yeah, we'll definitely do a link.
Oh, I should say that the show broadcasts every Sunday at 12 p.m. Pacific time at theonering.net/live. That's the easiest way to find it.
Yeah, so it's an actual live conversation where
Mm-hmm.
you can either obviously chat with him. You even tried doing a few Skypes, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, you can Skype in. We have a hotline you can call or text to. There's plenty of ways of getting in touch with the show.
So you get like a pretty good regular group of people, and then obviously you talk about different types of books, but you always, if there's a way to like compare it to something that happened in one of the Tolkien books, you guys do that. And then you have one dude who always talks about the Dark Knight for some reason. Right? Yeah.
This is an old conversation that we had like right at the start of the show. His name is Jan. He's from Denmark, and he's actually the guy who just started film school. He's a big Christopher Nolan fan, and we were doing a Get to Know You episode, and so he called in, and he was talking movies, and he started talking about how much he loved The Dark Knight Rises, and I said, yeah, that's the one I didn't really care for too much, and so we got into it a little bit. I mean, like very very lightheartedly. Like we weren't like angry at each other or yelling at each other or anything. But like it sort of became this regular back and forth where like he loves The Dark Knight Rises, I hate The Dark Knight Rises, and so this sort of like became a thing where now for some reason I hate Batman, which is so blatantly untrue. Like Batman is one of my favorite superheroes.
You know, you're the only other person I've ever met that doesn't like it as well. That doesn't like Dark Knight, but likes Batman. It's like everybody else is like, but it's the greatest thing. It's like, no, it's not.
No, well, I think I like The Dark Knight. I'm talking about The Dark Knight Rises, that movie specifically.
The third movie.
Oh, not the trilogy. Okay.
No, I'm talking about the third movie specifically. The other two I actually like very much.
Oh, okay.
So sorry, you stand alone, Vanessa.
I usually do.
Cool. Well, on that note, I guess wallow in Vanessa's loneliness. I'm a giant jerk today. I'd like to thank Vanessa for taking the pot shots here, and I'd like to thank Josh for coming on and talking about his podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And hope one of these days, I will join the Baggins Picnic someday.
Yeah. When football isn't on, which that'll never happen.
You have a phone. Bring it. And watch it on your phone like they do on those commercials.
Yeah. Then I burn through my data plan like it's I don't know I can't think of a good joke right now. All right. Josh can. I guess, Josh, I don't know if you do Twitter that much, but your Twitter handle, I believe, is it just Josh Rubinstein?
Yeah, it's at Josh Rubinstein, and there's a Twitter for the book club, which is at Torn Book Club, which I've got up on my little thingamabooby here.
Your lower third there, yep.
Yeah.
And Vanessa can be reached on Twitter at Crazy4Cult. And she has her own podcast that, so your next episode, I forgot, you're talking about, it's video game movies or something, right?
Yes.
Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter. That should be fun.
All right.
Yeah. My best friend is, dying for this episode.
Josh, do you know what your next episode is going to be about?
The next episode is going to be discussing our book of the month for September, which was The Giver by Lois Lowry.
Okay.
Which is a good school reading book. And timely because the movie just came out and has subsequently left theaters rather quickly.
Really? I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It didn't really make much of a dent. But alas. All right, cool. Then, obviously, thanks everybody for listening or watching. Yes, say goodnight, Josh.
Good night, Josh.
Say goodnight, Vanessa.
Good night, Vanessa.
And I'm Bin Lee, and I need a sign-off.